Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing fine. And guess what? We're gonna continue our session on transition age, where we already discussed in our previous session about mostly about Samuel Johnson's it was, and also we talked about all the PYQ that they have asked in previous exams from the like past 5 to 6 even 7 years of questions on Samuel Johnson we have collected and we have solved also. So a lot of things already discussed. If you haven't watched the previous session, you should go and watch, and you can continue anyway. You can if you haven't watched, you can watch whenever you get time. But here in this session we're going to talk about whoever is left, right? So Samuel Johnson, we already talked a lot of things. We talked about his earlier work, later work, and in the middle pay, all the quotes that we have made, right? And also we talked about all the questions. We talked about all of his poem, one drama Irene. We talked about prose. We took a lot of time to solve all of these, and we broke down everything from dictionary, then all these ramblers and preface to Shakespeare in different parts. And that's how we discussed all this. And whatever the question they throw at you, you will be able to answer if you have watched our previous session. So today we're gonna continue, and we talk about Daniel Defoe, Samuel Richardson, Henry Fielding, Lawrence Stern, Tobias Smollett, Sarah Fielding, Charlotte Lennox, and Oliver Goldsmith. And both these plays we're gonna talk about. And we also gonna talk about whatever the question they have asked on all of these poet, dramatist, or novelist, right? So let's not waste time. And of course, at the end of the session, we're going to talk about Richard Sheridan if possible in this session. Otherwise, we'll do it later. Anyway, whatever is there, we're gonna solve. Let me This is all Samuel Johnson. Remember, all these notes you can get, you can either buy one by one, or you can just get all in one go, right? So all these things you'll be able to get all these questions. As you can see, so many questions are there already, somewhere around 20, 25 to 30 questions that you can. So let's start with Samuel Richardson. So when we talk about, or when we discuss any of the novelist or writer or poet, dramatist, what we do, we talk about his life span. So remember the date 1689, 1761, very important. And one of the thing I would like to mention, they didn't ask a lot of question based on Richardson, Defoe, or even from Henry Fielding. So in that case, what of course the trend is gone. They used to ask a lot of question from Pamela, they used to ask a lot of question from Henry Fielding, Tom Jones, but these days very rare. Like in 6 years I got one or two questions from them, not more than that. So in that case, this session you can, you know take it lightly if you want. But anyway, I'll just talk about all the questions they have asked, and of course we'll continue with that. And as you know, Richardson was born in Derbyshire, and he was a son of a joiner. Remember, he apprenticed London printer. You know why he is very famous? Because he used to write a lot of love letters for their, friends. And you know he also got writing all that, actually helped him to become one of the famous novelists of his time. And one of his important work is Pamela. As you can see, what kind of question you get from chronology order. So Pamela is very important. And one of the important thing, if they don't ask directly, one question they might ask about Shamela, and that Shamela is by Henry Fielding, and that is a parody of Pamela. One of the important thing that you have to remember, and from that you get question. And Shamela was also the first work of them, Henry Fielding. Very important that you should know. So Pamela, in Pamela, what you have to remember: the virtue rewarded, subtitle, the publication of the date, and what else you can remember? Mr. B. Very important that you should know. Again, he has also written a sequel to Pamela in her exalted condition. There he created what? Male Pamela in the sequel. Right, and remember this very important work, Ian Watt, because they have asked a lot of question based on that. I mean, not directly, but it was in like match the following or the correct pair. So the rise of the novel by Ian Watt, very important, and that is full title Studies in Defoe, Richardson, and Fielding. So all these three major novelist he has discussed in his work the rise of the novel, very important. And as I told you, Pamela and Shamela is a parody of Pamela written by, the basic thing what happened. I'll just explain about the Shamela, why did he write it. Actually what happened, Pamela is a kind of character. It was there according to Henry Fielding that she was first abducted or kidnapped by a villain or seducer, Mr. B. But what happened, she eventually married her. In modern time it's not gonna happen, right? So Shamela is a kind of parody for Pamela, suggesting that what kind of character Shamela was there. And what happened in reply, our Richardson wrote an apology for the life of Mrs. Shamela Andrew. Remember, and it is remember Shamela, very important, a novel by Henry Fielding published under very important Coney Kaiba. If they ask, if they go a little bit deeper, they might ask that. Otherwise you are good to go. And let me tell you the plot. In plot, very simple overall plot is there is a girl, Pamela Andrews, and Mr. B kind of attracted to her, but she never you know accepted his proposal. Then what Mr. B did, he kidnapped her. And when kidnapped her, many times she was in the you know locked up in a room. And Mr. B tried hard to persuade her, but again didn't happen. Then Mr. B's heart changes, and what he did is that he kind of his heart melted, and he was kind of okay, let that girl go. And what happened in the end, eventually Pamela accepted it. So that's the whole plot here, and that's what you have to remember. Anyway, let's talk about Clarissa Harlow. Another important, remember, when we discuss any novelist, what we do, the question we get from chronology, and for that we make code: first work, last work, second work, second last, and whatever comes in the middle. Always this formula you should follow. So first work is Pamela, right? Second work is Clarissa, and the last work, as you can see here, we have Charles Grandison. So three works, you don't have to remember a lot of stuff, but that you can remember. Also the full title, The History of a Young Lady. Remember, all of that time, all the works are written in epistolary form, even Pamela also. So that's very important that you should know this. So his third novel, Sir Charles Grandison, very important. All these three works you have to remember, starting with Pamela, then Clarissa, and then we have Charles Grandison. Okay, Then we'll move on. Other things not very important. It's all about his style, what kind of style he has written. As you know, epistolary very important, and the plot are not complicated. They are very simple in one linear way. Not like there are not so many subplots, but one plot which follows a simple, you know, a flow. So when you read it, it'll also a kind of Pamela, if you read it, it's good. Otherwise, it's very big. Anyway, if you know the plot, then you're good to go. Next, we're gonna talk about Henry Fielding, and Henry Fielding is important because of Tom Jones, because the clash between Richardson that he written, right, Samela Andrews, very important. And if you remember Tom Jones, if they ask question, they might ask from that. Other than that, they are not gonna ask. Anyway, again, epistolary form, as you know. And what is important here is, it is written in digression. So if you just read Tom Jones, there is digression in the part. Like so many subplots are there, so many people are right. Dogs are by different. So, like suppose, if there is one digression, the character will talk about something else. The whole complete, different story from, what we are going through. So, complete different novel itself. It's, as you know, it's a very very big book. Will take a lot of time to read, but again, it's all in digression form, so that you have to remember. Again, where he was born, Somerset Shire, and he plays had a little merit. His plays had a little merit. Very important. I don't know why did they put this point in the question, but remember that he didn't write anything there. Any important stuff in plays. So he was not successful as a playwright, but he was very successful from his novel, for example, Tom Jones. Right, and what else you should remember? Joseph Andrews, very important work, began as a satire on Pamela. So Joseph Andrews, so all the works you should know of Henry Fielding. So not too many works. We have some, uh, few works that you can remember, like Joseph Andrew is there, and then we have Jonathan the Wild, very important, then Tom Jones, and other. So these three are important that you should know about Henry Fielding. Anyway, you're not gonna get a lot of question from that, but that's what you require here. So anyway, uh, Amelia is based on Henry Fielding's first wife and himself. So we have a code to remember every single stuff, every single work, starting with Shamela as he started his career, parody, right? And Shamela is a novella written by Fielding. Remember, first work. So first, last, and in the middle. So first is Shamela, the last is Amelia, and in the between we have Joseph Andrews, Jonathan Wild, Tom Jones, and A Journey from This World to Next. Why I have put? Because they have asked question on that as well. Like, you know, this work is written by who? Following work is written by who? So that kind of question you get, and it's a very old question, I guess. But these days, as I told you, they don't ask a lot of question. They might ask chronology order of Sir Tom, history of Tom Jones with other important novelists' work. So that you have to remember. Anyway, what is the code that we have made, and it also represent the whole plot as well. So if you remember the code, your plot is also clear. For example, all of his work has something associated with seducing stuff. So all in the all these work you see have this kind of plot in all of them. So we have a code: shame on Andrew and Jonathan Wild. So remember, shame on Andrew, shame first work, Andrew second work, on Jonathan Wild third work, because they blamed, you know, the female husband for seducing Tom Jones and Amelia. So, if you remember all of this code, then your Henry Fielding is done, and your, if they ask a question, one question done and dusted for you, right? A little bit about all these work we're gonna discuss. Shamela, not much to discuss. You should know that it's a satirical burlesque novella, and it's a parody on Pamela. That's all you have to remember, and it is written under Mr. Coney Khyber. Again, attacks the popular novel Pamela, as I told you. Then second work, The History and the Adventure of Joseph Andrews. They used to ask, questions on Joseph Andrews, especially inside. But the trend is gone. You can just remember the work that Henry. Uh, remember comic epic poem in prose. He actually defined this particular work. So the title page is written in imitation of the manner of excuse me, Cervantes, author of Don Quixote. So that's the title page, it is written there, right? So anyway, let me see whoever is there. Anyway, one person is there already. So can you just say, you know, hi in the chat box, and especially leave the like if possible, and do comment if you want anything else other than, if you want to inquire about the notes, you can write notes in the chat box. And of course, let's continue with our session. So we were talking about the history and adventure of Joseph Andrew. As I told you, you have to know the title page, what is written, and comic epic poem in prose. That's all you have to remember here. And again, as I told you, all about that seducing one or another. Right. Then we have the life and death of Jonathan Wild. You should know what it is based on. So remember, underworld boss Jonathan Wild. It was there, and basically it represented Robert Walpole. He is the same guy who is the father of Horace Walpole, our fictional, our gothic novelist. Right, that we'll discuss in our next chapter. Another is the female husband, the work. Anyway, if we know the code, it'll be easy for us to remember every single stuff. And Tom Jones. Tom Jones is a kind of very big one, big novel, and it is important because of this picturesque novel. So it's kind of adventurous novel. The guy goes on adventures, meets so many people, meets so many girls, have so many dates, all these stuff. And remember, the other word of this is called Bildungsroman. And Bildungsroman is something starting with a small child, the whole life from childhood to adulthood. So that is your, Bildungsroman kind of a style, novel. Very important. These two terms are in Tom Jones by Henry Fielding. As I told you, the date is very important, 1749. They always ask in chronological order. So all these important works and novels, what we're gonna do at the end of our course, we're gonna have like 7 days of session with the code and chronology. As you know, you get 15 questions on chronology alone. So that's the class that you should not miss. These series will come as a workshop that you should attend, where we'll discuss all the work in chronological manner, and along with that we're going to talk about all the codes that we have created so far to remember every single stuff. So your 15 questions are like, fixed, you're going to get anyway. Okay, right. And as you know, Tom Jones is a very famous novel at that time, and so many critics and so many people have commented on it. Like Coleridge said that the three most perfect plots ever planned, and three most means first is this, and the second, Coleridge is talking about Pamela also. So the characters, as you know, we have. In that very important character that you should, Tom title character Sophia, and they kind of love each other. Then they got separated, and they had a little bit misunderstanding between them. Then Master William Blifil, this is the guy, you know and the rivals of, so triangle love story these three people make. Squire Alworthy is the important character because he's the kind of guardian, and eventually is grandfather of uh, you know our Tom Jones. Eventually, at the end of the novel, you kind of found out that Tom is actually, you know, blood related to uh, Alworthy. Squire Weston, another character, very important, and also he's a father of Sophia, and he wants Sophia to, married to here. And Miss Bridget Allworthy, another Mrs. Blifil character that you just have to remember all these three important characters in the beginning. That's all, and you are done. Another character they used to ask a lot of question on, Lady Bellaston. Tom's lover, manipulative, tries to sabotage Sophia. So she kind of got in between to kind of their relationship to Tom's kind of sabotage there. You see, and it's in the middle of the novel. It's not in the beginning, but somewhere around in the middle it happens. Right. Jessie Jones is important character known as Mrs. Water. People think that Mrs. Water is a kind of Tom's mother. So that's what you have to remember. Mrs. Partridge, another kind of first wife. So the whole, if you know this, then the plot is clear. So if you would just ask me a plot in very simple way, I'll say the novel opens with a door. Okay. Grandfather opens a door, our Alworthy, and he founds a child, foundling, a kid, a bastard. Nobody knows whose father, whose mother, all these stuff. Right. So what actually happened? Alworthy took him as the he started taking care of him, and Tom then becomes a little bit bigger, like in his childhood, and he was also kind of, when he was teen, he falls in love with Sophia Weston, a kind of neighborhood, and there is a tutor Thockham and philosopher Squire resent Tom. So this is some kind of small plot that you don't have to. So as I told you, triangle started when Blifil comes, and in between there are so many adventure. Tom goes to London and all these stuff happens, and they found each other in between. But then again, another Belestin character, some kind of things happen, and at the end what happened, Tom finds out that actually that you know uh, he is a grandson of Alworthy at the end. So all ends well for Tom, Sophia, and Alworthy. All of them are happy. So as you know, the father of Sophia, he wanted Sophia to marry in a good family, and when they found out that Tom is from a big family, like from Alworthy, so they what happened, they kind of reunite, happy happens, right. And anyway, there is another work, A Journey from This World to Next, Amelia, sentimental novel, final novel, and first Shamela, Amelia in the end, and between we have Joseph Andrews, Tom Jones, and again Jonathan Wild. Right, all these things are there, and we are done. And let me tell you what kind of question they have asked in the past on Richardson and Tom Jones and Henry Fielding. Right. So the first question: which of the following statement in a true context of Henry Fielding, Tom Jones? Tom Jones is a comic and moralistic novel. Yes. Tom and Tom Jones are are the main character in the main characters of Tom Jones. Are there are not two characters, right? Only Tom is there. Tom Jones are together. So this obviously is wrong. Tom is caught pooching in Neva's game preserve, and that's true. If you know the plot, you will definitely get the idea. D, the history of Tom Jones is the full title, definitely, and all of the above, definitely not, because this was wrong. Easy to answer, right? So that was very old question anyway. Find the chronological order of their years of birth. Again, about the author, the year of birth, as you know, which start Henry Fielding the first, as we know, and then we have uh, Jane Austen, then we have, and if it was Richardson, then Richardson would have come earlier. And as you know, this is our answer. Remember, all these questions you can easily solve where in our Google Classroom, and of course if you join the course you will get all these MCQs with explanation, and also these notes you can also download from there. As you know, description box, go and join the course, right? So Henry Fielding born on 1707, Jane 1975. You can see Victorian this guy is, so obviously after 1811. Richard Moore, again Victorian is modern, J.M. Barrie, right? So this all easy to remember. Next we'll talk about Lawrence Stern, very important because of Tristram Shandy. They used to ask a lot of question on Shandy. So as I told you, from Richardson and Henry Fielding, what we got only 2 questions in 7 years. So that's the kind of trend is going on, right? So you can even skip all these if you want, but for your knowledge, if you only remember the code, then it'll be enough for you. Then Lawrence is son, as I was telling you, and he has written Tristram Shandy. Very important is the date of 5967, and Stern was born in where Colonel Clonmel, educated at Cambridge. Because uh, what is important here is the you know Tristram Shandy's full title, A Sentimental Journey. They ask, these two works are there. Subtitle is different, that we'll talk about, and of course A Sentimental Journey 1760. There are two works, very important, and as I mentioned in Tristram Shandy, this my uncle Toby is a very important character that they usually ask question on that. Remember, we have every single 9 unknown case of abuses and romances of Tristram Shandy. So 9 means 9 volume are there in Tristram Shandy. Unknown case, another work. Of abuses, another work. As you can see, unknown world, 9 unknown represent case, represent case of Elia and the widow, of abuses and romances of Tristram Shandy. Tristram Shandy, 9 work, very important, and some sermon is there, another work, and at the end, France and Italy tour. Why I have mentioned that France and Italy? Because they have asked question on that as well. So this whole code is there, as you can see over your screen. You can take screenshot if you want, otherwise you can just easily buy our notes and you will get it there, and along with that, as I told you, PYQ would be there. Tristram Shandy, uh, Tristram Shandy is a kind of very big and kind of mixed plot. Mixed in the sense nothing is in the kind of serial order. They are like some related to stream of conscious. He's talking about something else in the first chapter and completely different in second chapter. So these things happens when we kind of read Tristram Shandy. I'll just read out all these things for you, then you can get what kind of experience. So everything is in episodes blend sentimental and comic experience. Remember, psychological inter play of sentiment and desire. Why we have this particular thing? Because it kind of form our stream of conscious stuff. So it's the beginning of it, and mostly the psychological writing, and of course what goes inside the Tristram's mind. So that is all about that. Remember, it actually inspired metaphysical poets and John Locke's philosophy. So this particular work is inspired by metaphysical poet. As you know, these metaphysical poets, they talk about their emotions, mostly lyrical, and lyrical are there so many conceit, and of course extended metaphor is there. Metaphysical kind of model Tristram Shandy followed, and it was inspired by those metaphysical writings, poems, and poets. That's what you have to remember. As you know, Tristram Shandy is a precursor of a stream of conscious that I told you before, and Tristram fails to tell his own story because he starts telling his something else, his story, he's talking about him, but end up talking about all the nonsense. Here zigzag way is happening, a kind of stream of conscious. As you know, when we talk about Virginia Woolf and James Joyce, we'll talk about the stream of conscious in a very depth way because they ask question on that as well, right? So he's talking in the beginning about his birth, but what happened is delayed till volume third. So his birth happens where in volume third. Very important. We have character Walter, Uncle Toby, Trim, and Yorick. What you have to remember here, Uncle Toby, this character. And as you know, he's a very good guy. Uncle Toby is a gentle and loves humanity. And what happens to Tristram? Tristram is discourses on sex, insult, names, and noses. And Tristram life shaped by four mishaps. Remember, four. Ask a little bit deeper that they're gonna throw at you. But anyway, first mishap, what happened? Tristram's procreation disrupted by clock winding. So he's taking birth and all these clock winding thing is happening. Second mishap, his nose crushed by Doctor Slope's forceps. So all these comedy is happening around it. So second mishap. Third mishap, Tristram's name's ruined by medication. His name brings sorrow, try to, you know, tied to folk etymology. And our fourth mishap, which is very important, is a window sash caused accidental circumcision. So all these mishaps that you have to remember. And this Yorick character appears sentimental. Right, so that's all about our Tristram Shandy. Now we're gonna talk about Tobias Smollett. Very important only because of all of his work. Roderick Random 1748. They ask question on that. So if they ask question, it will be from Richardson together. Then we have Henry Fielding and we Tobias Smollett and of course Lawrence Stern. So these they will ask one question from all these four or five novelists. So we have a code, and even if you remember the code, then your this Smollett is Tobias is kind of completed. Rora, Pepe, Fefa, Atom Bomb, Grieve on Complete England, Expedition of Humphrey Kinker. So this code, if you remember, will be easy. Rora is of one work, Roderick Random, and Pepe is Peregrine Pickle. They ask question on that. Only the name of the work, nothing else you can expect from that. Then FIFA is Ferdinand Fathom. So all are in kind of rhythm. So Rora, Pepe, FIFA. Atom Bomb because they have asked question on that also. So for that you have to remember that thing, right? A complete history of England. They have asked one question very recent on that as well. And the history of adventure of atom represent this atom bomb on England. Okay, don't take it seriously. And the last is our expedition of Humphrey Clinker. So that's all you have to remember there. And we have one question that they have asked about Tobias Smollett, a complete history of England, as you can see here. Right. So that's the kind of question, and that's kind of very, not well known work, but they even asked about it. So in that case, this particular work is important. And another work, as you can see, we have David Hume, very famous work that he has made a treatise, right, on human nature. And we have another work which is Edward Gibbon's The Decline and Fall of Roman Empire. And at the end, we are left with inquiry concerning not human understanding but political justice. Right? So that you have to know. So that's all there. One question from all these. Then we have Sarah Fielding. What you have to remember that she has written. She is another kind of sister of our Henry Fielding, and some works that she has written, not basically important for you to remember, but what you have to know, Sarah Fielding is a sister of Henry Fielding, and she has written some novels. Lennox, about in our previous session, in the beginning when we talked about all the uh, you know in the beginning, but here also we're gonna just focus on a little bit more why she is famous. You just have to remember the female Kohate, as from based on Sir Cervantes. Kohate is there, and remember the date 1752. So all this adventure is there in the female Kohate, same like done Kohate. Adventure of Arabella. So remember the title character, and it has been called a burlesque satirical harlequinade. So all this is important. That's all is there to remember Sir Lancelot. And very important is Oliver Goldsmith. They always ask one question on Goldsmith and Sheridan together. Usually they come in chronology order, both Sheridan and Goldsmith. So here we're going to talk about Goldsmith. They might ask their chronology order, which certainly they ask in dramatists, starting with other like Goldsmith. They'll add our Wilde, also Sheridan. So these things, and Congreve is also coming on that list. So all these uh, writers, they ask usually chronology, right? So let me tell you about Oliver Goldsmith. So are you guys ready? Okay, let me tell you about Oliver Goldsmith. So Goldsmith, as you know, he's Anglo-Irish clergyman, very important. Studied in Trinity College, Dublin, and remember he was kind of almost expelled from his involvement of Black Dog right. So that Black Dog right was kind of funny story that I would like to mention, because there was a guy got locked up in Newgate prison, and these students involved made a gang and kind of rushed into Newgate to you know take out that guy, and that is actually Black Dog, right? And he often contributed to Ralph Griffith's monthly review. And as you know, he was Anglo-Irish essayist, poet, novelist, dramatist. So he has a kind of written a lot of stuff in each and every genre. So as an essayist, he has written The Citizen of the World in 1762, very important, and an inquiry into the present state of learning in England. So our guy has so many feathers in his hat. In essay, he has written two essays. Poem, he has written two poem. Novel, he has written two, and a kind of another essay, prose, poem two, novel two, and drama two. So all he has written two, and that we'll discuss anyway what he has done. So let me tell you about the two essays that he has written: the Surgeon of the World and Another is the inquiry into the present state of polite learning in Europe. Novel he has written, two novel, remember, The Vicar of the Field, very important. The first one is usually they ask question on that. Remember the date they usually ask. And the poem, The Traveler, Prospect Society, and The Deserted Village. Both of these questions are important, and usually if they ask anything about it, they'll ask from She Stoops to Conquer, or they'll ask about the deserted village from the poem. And remember, George Crabbe also wrote the poem The Village. Very important stuff. And the play, as we know, She Stoops to Conquer. Very important. It has another, initial title, The Mistake of Night, but eventually he ended up with this name, She Stoops to Conquer. Right. Anyway, we'll talk about all of this one by one. So, The Traveler is also a poem, remember, a philosophical poem. And why it is important? Because it is written in heroic verse, not from the Chaucer or Dryden's Aid, but from the Augustan style. That's what you have to remember. And The Deserted Village. So, if the word village, shepherd, farm, garden, all these keyword comes, you should know it's about the pastoral, right? And as you know, deserted village, it's a kind of sad song. So when it is sad, unhappy, death, right, the comes into elegy. So they both together make pastoral elegy, and this idealize a rural way of actually there, and they are just moving from one place to another, going to the kind of they have been mistreated by all these landlords and all these political changes, leaving the village, deserting the village. So the title completely represent what the poem is all about. And the central image of this, remember the line, 430 lines are there. And very important, titular, this word is important, they have asked question on this, titular village of Auburn. So that Auburn is very important, that you should know the name of the village. Another we have She Stoops to Conquer. Anyway, we'll discuss about it when we talk about She Stoops to Conquer in detail and the whole freaking plot, and that's a kind of big plot that we'll talk about. Anyway, he was a member of Samuel Johnson the club. Remember Samuel's circles, and he was not only the member of it, but Samuel Johnson helped him for to sell his novel The Vicar of the Field. So remember that club Goldsmith was the member, and that club was not only found by our Johnson but also Joshua Reynolds. So these all are very kind of important when we discuss. Anyway, any other poet I mean dramatist or any other writer who belongs to the club? If you know the answer, write in the chat box. Otherwise, I will mention at the end later this session. Right. Let me tell you about the Vicar of the Field. What you have to remember here, Dr. Important character is there in the novel. So, Primrose kind of lives peacefully in a country. So he's a kind of in a country living peaceful life. He's wealthy, yes, and Primrose donates his annual salary to usually orphans and veterans. And George's wedding is called off after what happened. This Primrose, when he's very successful, so obviously you can think of something is going to, turn, right? So something is going to turn, which means his fortune is gonna be completely changed, and he's kind of fallen now, he's poor now, everything is going against it, right? And all these thing happens in the Dr. Primer, I mean the Vicar of the Field. That's all you have to remember, and if you remember the character, then your one question is done, right? She Stoops to Conquer, very important work. Name mistakes, always get question on that. And the character, Remember Charles Marlowe, George Hastings, Tony Lumpkin, Mr. Hardcastle, our Mrs. Hardcastle, and very important character, our heroine, Miss Kate Castle, and Miss Constance Novella, a kind of niece, and Sir Charles Marlowe, of course. So all these characters, if you know, it will be for you. That's a kind of question they ask, right? Okay. So, if the character is clear, now let me tell you the story. So, as you know, our Charles Marlowe is very educated and he's a very good, right? And he falls in love with our, Kate Hardcastle. And how he falls, they actually go out, you know, to, see actually Kate Hardcastle, but they don't know they kind of uh, stop kind of lost it, and they found a house. Okay, and they thought ki it's a kind of inn, a hotel. They asked about it and they think ki, Miss Kate Hardcastle is a waiter, and even though he kind of falls in love with the waiter, and because of the status they could not marry and all, and when they eventually found out ki okay that Mr. Hardcastle is the same, that he thought he was a waiter, they kind of reunited and all, right? So that's the small plot, that if you know more, or if you want this whole notes, you can just easily go and do what, join the course and take the notes and all the questions, right? Anyway, The Deserted Village is by Oliver Goldsmith. What is that? Is the voices a revolt of the industrial man against institution. As I told you, they were doing very bad stuff to, you know exploiting all poor people in the village. So correct explanation, as you see, we have all the commentary, condemned rural depopulation, excessive wealth, and all the correct explanation you'll get. So as I told you, you always get a lot of question, especially based on Oliver Goldsmith. Either they'll ask about the village, or they'll ask about the his play. So a deserted, simple, which poem? A deserted, a deserted villa, a deserted, definitely the deserted villa. Very easy. Sometimes you get these kind of, light question. Another work, Dr. Primrose, as I told you, the weaker of the field, we just discussed, easy to answer. And some important character that you should know: Jane Eyre from Jane Eyre, Pip from Great Expectation, and Dorothy Brooke from Middlemarch, David Copperfield from David Copperfield, Catherine Elsa from Wuthering Height, Oliver Twist from Oliver, Bathsheba Everdeen from Madding, Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy, Phineas Finn from Phineas Finn by Anthony Trollope, and Tess D'Urbervilles from Thomas Hardy's novel Tess of the D'Urbervilles, and Dunn Watson from Holmes. All these are there. Anyway, that we'll discuss when we talk about them in our period wise lecture. So arrange the following poets in accordance with their path. So as I told you, as a poet, Oliver Goldsmith is there, as you know. Oldest, remember we have a code for this: older, oldest, youngest. So our Spencer was the oldest, then the older was Philip Sidney. So these two are done, right? Then we have our George Herbert, then done, and at the end Goldsmith, is just now we discussed, right? So completely 1 or 200 years gap is there. So question number 33, Oliver Goldsmith. Question is not Johnson's literary. As we know, Oliver Goldsmith is there, right? Edmund Burke is there, Hawkins is there, but this guy is not there, John Dryden. Easy to answer. Other members, as you can see here: Reynold, Johnson, Burke, Christopher Nugget. We have Bennett Langton, Oliver Goldsmith, Anthony Chamier, and John Hawkins. Question number 34. It is talking about match list with two. And what do we have here? Oliver Goldsmith wrote The Deserted Village. Easy to answer. And our Lord Byron, The Vision of Jack. Right? Things is a kind of. And we have The Sister is 4 by Swinburne. And we are left with and Radcliffe, The Romance of the Forest. That anyway we'll talk about when we talk about Gothic fiction. Another novelist at this time we have in transition or Augustan prose is Frances Burney, and her work, very important, Evelina, and the full title. That's the question you get in it, not more than that. Full title you should know: Evelina, the history of a young lady entrance into the world. Very important, and very important is was Evelina's grandmother. So basically what happens if she wants to uh, acknowledgement, grandmother's plans to force. So what eventually happens that Evelina goes leave the house and goes to London, and that's the thing in the plot. So remember, she has new experience now. She's going to learn a lot of stuff, all these stuffs, right? So the full title, that's the where they have asked the question. We have Richard Brinsley Sheridan, very important, especially the plot. We'll have a special session on Richard Brinsley Sheridan, one complete session, because one question is directly your question from Richard Brinsley. Right. So let me tell you about a little bit about his life. Anyway, we'll discuss in detail later in the not in the session but separate session on uh, Sheridan, because his both work is important. The Rivals, sorry, we have The Rivals, the first one, and we have The School for Scandal. All these two works are very important. And anyway, we have the quote to remember: Rivals D-Day, Scare Scandal, Camp Critic, 1st June Pizza. So that code, then your Sheridan work is done. Anyway, we'll talk about when we'll have a separate session on Sheridan, and we'll also discuss, you see, a lot of uh, you know points are there in the plot that we'll have to cover everything, because they ask a lot of question on that. Again, they ask about chronology order, all these question also. Along with that, we're gonna talk in the Sheridan section anyway. So for now, that's all for today, and I'll see you in our next session. So for now, have a good day and take care. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and also if you want to download the notes, you can download from the description below. Okay then, bye bye and take care.